I was in Canada and homesick, and I wanted to find a wife. I couldn't make up my mind. And so one day I booked a boat and came with the SS Homeric from the Italian homeline back to Europe, to Le Havre. Arriving in Switzerland, well, a few months went by and it was January. Went for a long weekend skiing. It was over the 1st of New Year. I was in Davos, 3 days, nothing happened. And with the Retic train, today calls the Glacier Express from Davos back to Langquart, I met my wife. She was sitting opposite side of me, giving me a smile. And I smiled back and started to talk to her. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to get off in Langquart to go to Zurich. And she said, oh, I have to go to Zurich too. So we went together, changed the train, and we came to Zurich. And I asked her, would you come out for a coffee? And she said, I'm sorry, I'm going to be picked up. Well, my name is Bruno. Would you give me your phone number? And she said, yes, my name is Gaby, and here is my phone number. I made with her a date for skiing. We went to the Flumserberge, and we had a fantastic skiing up in the high mountains. And I realized she is a top skier. She was waiting for me on a difficult passage and showed me how to do it and disappeared in the snow cloud. And down in the valley, oh my, she didn't ask me for an apero. She asked me for a glass of tea with a slice of lemon and no cigarette. I thought, this is a wonderful woman, and she is so humble, and with little she is very happy. So I ordered for other dates. And it happened, we had other skiing together and was wonderful time together. I had to go to the army, and I knew she had a vaccination to go to South Africa. And because I was 3 years in Canada, I had to repeat courses which I was missing. At night I couldn't sleep, all my comrades were deep asleep and snoring away. And I went up on a lantern light, on a rough table. I wrote a filled military mail to her, stay here, when I come back to Zurich we will engage. And so it was. When the train pulled into Zurich, Gaby was on the perron and waiting for me. And we engaged, and that was 4 months after our get-together, when I met her. I said to her, well, look, now it's the time we have to prepare for our wedding. We took the car and we drove around the lake of Zurich. I had in plan to take the boat and then go to a beautiful little village where the church was for our church ceremony and having a meal in a restaurant on the lake. But everything was booked. I was frustrated. Nothing worked out to my plans. But I had a friend, and he worked with a bus company in Zurich. And he said, oh, Bruno, don't worry. I have your beautiful bus. And when the day came, the 25th of August, the radio in the morning announced heavy rain and storm later on during the day. No boats allowed on the lake. And we drove with a bus in sheer rain to a little chapel on the Suggerberg in Canton Zug. It was an ecumenical chapel because Gaby was Catholic and I was Protestant. But Gaby wanted to marry Protestant because she thought I'm more faithful than she is. And so we came to that little church, and it was raining. We went into the church. We had the ceremony in the church. And when we came out, a miracle. The clouds broke open and sun broke through the clouds and we could make pictures. And then we went on the bus down the mountain from the Zuckerberg up on the Albis to the Albis Gürtli restaurant. The plan was having a bird view from the restaurant down to the lake over the Glarner Alps. But when we came up there, was sheer rain, white blanket, no view at all. We had to rush from the bus into the restaurant that we get not socket wet. And there was waiting a beautiful table, all arranged for us. And when the ceremony was going on for our wedding meal, telegrams were read, and there was one from a friend of mine, Reini Zobrist. Bruno, I have you a job with the aluminum company in Canada, in Montreal. We had our wedding dance. I said to Gaby, what do you think to go to Canada? And she said, why not? Well, when all was over, we were again in the gears, working. And I never liked my work, and Gaby was not so happy either. And she asked me one day, would you like to go to Canada back? And I said, oh Gaby, let's go to the Canadian ambassador. We drove to Bern, and the Canadian ambassador said, I'm sorry sir, Canada has quotes these days. We have recession, much unemployment. But because you have a job with the Aluminum Company of Canada and you have 3 years experience in Canada, I make an exception and I give you the visa. So we drove back home, booked the boat, and in summertime with another friend couple from Zurich, we went together on the SS Homeric, the Italian line, which I came from Canada to Le Havre, back from Le Havre to Montreal. And I said to Gaby, well listen, this is a one-way honeymoon trip. I'm no more going back. We're going to stay here. But when I went out to see my job, to have an interview, that was in the Sun Life building in Montreal on the 6th floor. It was all dark, was closed. I was told, the company is in strike. You can talk to nobody. Well, what can I do? They laid off people, even engineers, by the hundreds. So I thought I better go and look for a job. Newly married, and my wife as an esthetician, diplomed, looking for a job. After 7 days, I got a job. Less salary than I had after 2 years when I left Canada for Switzerland. I had less salary than starting in Montreal, and I was married. And Gaby couldn't find a job because they had not even an esthetician in 1957. So she had to register with the Parité Comité de Coiffeur, and she didn't like that at all. And I worked, and Gaby gave a child, and that was Anita in 1958. And in 1962, Gaby worked too then on her profession as an esthetician. opened the store, a salon, and she gave birth to our son Leo in 1962. And so our life went on, and that is history, as you see. And I thank you for listening.